Hello and welcome to the next video in the set of videos on how to set up a KNX system in your home. In this video I'm going to be talking about how to set up a heating system. Now, the heating control has been one of the most challenging elements of KNX installation that I've come across. So I'm going to share with you in this video how I've gone about setting up my own KNX system here and all the struggles that I've been through, hopefully to give you some inspiration and insight in how you might set up one on your own. So to dive straight into it, these are the products that I've got in the house at the moment. I've got a Theban Varia 826, which is a kind of heating controller. It shows the current heating, the sort of the timeline of heating. Gives you a bit of information about the day and the time, and it shows whether the heating's on and then what the kind of status level is of the heating, and it gives you some basic controllers. I use that as my main controller in the main area, and the other really nice thing about it is that it allows you to have there's 8 channels which you can use to do switching programs on. And so although I use this as a heating controller for my main area, I also use it as a switching controller for the heating in about another 4 areas. I've got a living room and kitchen area, and then a lounge area, and a couple of bedrooms and a bathroom, and so the Varia controls just through a timing, through a switch timing program. It controls the heating in these other areas. It also has a whole set of freely programmable screens and options which allow you to if you click on this menu button, you get a whole set of other different pages which you can display, and you can tailor the information which is displayed on each of those pages to give you a really nice sort of interactive screen for managing programs and viewing temperatures and so on. So I'll show you how I've done that with mine. So that sort of sits on the wall, and then is connected through to this Theban HMG, which has 6 channels for controlling the actual valve, the heating valves, which allow the hot water to flow from the boiler through to the radiators, or in my case, underfloor heating. So this can act as either a controller, where it'll take in sort of temperature inputs, and it'll have a sort of set temperature, and then it'll either turn on the valve or not, according to those temperatures that feed into it. So you can make it work like that, or it can act as just an actuator. So you'll get a controlling value for the valve of, say, 50% from the Varia, and that'll come into one of the channels, and it'll just open that valve. So this can act in 2 different ways, and I'll show you how. Again, I've got mine set up to work in 2 different ways. One as just an actuator, where the Varia is controlling things, so the temperature inputs go into the Varia, and then I've also got it as a controller, where just the switching program is coming from the Varia on one of these programmable switching output channels. It's coming in there and actually acting as a controller. So as I say, this is just connected straight to the valves and the manifold. And then next to that, embedded next to that, I have a Theban RMH, which is a high voltage switch actuator, and this is used to do things like boiler fire, to switch on the underfloor heating pump on the manifold, and it also actuates the towel rails as well, and there's 4 channels there. So that's the sort of basic setup of the heating. So this is a picture of my heating manifold. We've got the underfloor heating pump here, and we've got the pipes coming in from the boiler and going back up to the boiler, and then we've got the underfloor heating valves here, which are connected to that HMT just here, and you can see we've got bathroom, bedroom, kitchen, lounge and lounge. So there's 5 areas here, and then we've got sort of valves which show the temperature going in and then the temperature coming out of that. And then I've just got a straightforward standard, I think it's a Green Spa Worcester Bosch boiler, which heats the hot water and also all the water which flows through the manifold. And then measuring the temperatures in the rooms, I've got a mix of basalt auros in the ceiling, so they're in the bathrooms, And then all of the light switches in my house have got jung light switches, a bit like this, and these actually have a temperature controller, sorry, not a temperature controller, a temperature measure within the light switches themselves. So there's a lot of temperature information coming in from all of these temperature measurements around the house. Okay, so that's the equipment that you require. Just some an aside note on how heating is controlled by KNX. So with the Theban types, you have 4 modes that you can use. There's the comfort mode, which is a set temperature of 21 degrees. Then you have standby, which is the set temperature -2, so that'll obviously be 19. And then we've got nighttime, which is again that comfort set time -5, so that becomes 16. And then we have a frost temperature one, which will is a temperature of 6. So what happens when the heating controller is in comfort mode? If the temperature coming in to the temperature controller is below 21, it will turn on the valve and then the room will heat up. If the temperature exceeds 21, it will just switch that off. And so what you can do is you can control the actual ambient temperatures in the room by just switching between these modes. So you can switch from comfort to standby, to night to frost. So when you're away, for example, you can just switch it to frost, the heating will go off, and then it will just kick in only if it falls very, very low to stop your pipes from freezing. So, so how do you set up your group addresses? So for each room, you would want to set up your group addresses a little bit like that. You have the first one is the bathroom base set point, which will be say 21 degrees. Then you've got an option for a manual offset, so that you can either sort of increase your set point or decrease your set point by an amount. Then we've got a group address for the actual temperature in the room, and this is what the group address that would be linked in the temperature monitors, so the basalt auros or the light switches, and that this will send out the actual temperature of the room to this address. Then you've got the operating mode, so either that, and that'll be one of those 4 that we saw before: comfort, standby, night or frost. And then we've got the operating mode feedback, which is not very well named in this case, but this should be operating mode feedback, but it's just called current mode, which just gives you an indication of what mode the controller is in. And then we've got the heating valve value. So this is how much. This is a percentage value of how much the valve should be open, which goes to the actuator. And then we've got the current set point. So when the mode changes, say it changes from comfort mode, where the current set point temperature would be 21, to say nighttime, then you would have that. This would go to nighttime, and then this would drop to 16. And then we've just got a heating boost channel, which allows you to kind of just briefly change the operating mode to comfort as and when you need it. So the first setup I'll show you is the sort of the more typical one, and that's where we use the Varia as a timer and the HMG as a controller. So we have our temperature measures up here in our various switches or the auros, and this sends the current temperature through this channel to the Theban, the HMG controller. And so this is taking in the temperatures here, and it's making the decision about whether how open the valve should be on each one of these channels. So when the valve is open, it will turn on the underfloor heating pump through this channel here. So you have an output going into the switching channel, which will turn on the underfloor heating pump. And then the Varia over here, all this does is it kind of uses this sort of timeline here, and it flicks between the different modes. So here this is nighttime, and then it'll go to comfort here in the morning, and then it'll drop down to standby here, and then comfort again around lunchtime, and then back down to standby, and then in the evening it'll go up to comfort. So that's what those little sort of bars are, that little sort of histogram is there. And what's happening is as the time moves along here and we flick between this, say, this point to this point, it will change. You'll get a message out here saying, okay, we're going to change from nighttime to comfort, and that'll go out on this channel into the Theban. This will update its set point. It'll register. It'll look to see what the current temperature is, and then decide whether it needs to switch on the underfloor heating pump. One of the other things you can do is have a little heating boost as well, which is like a little presence detector here, but you can just have this as a switch, where basically you hit this, and for an hour it'll just turn on it'll change this into the comfort channel and turn on the heating if it's low. One of the things that we'll also connect is we will connect the current temperature from the switches to the Varia, so that we can display the actual current temperature here. So we take the current temperature from here and display it here, although that has no impact on the current mode which is coming out through that timing circuit. So I'll just break out of PowerPoint and show you in ETS how I've set that up. So I'll just I've got my ETS5 opened up, and I'll look at my downstairs, and I'll go to have a look at the Theban. That's in the that's in the garage. So if I open that up, garage, here's the Varia, and you can see these are all the channels that are available for the Varia. If I click on the parameters, I'll show you. So we're using this as a timer. So we're going to ignore these. This is about where these first ones are. These first parameters here are really for when the Varia acts as a heating controller, which I'll show you shortly. So what we have down here is we have a number of switching programs. So this is the switching channel for the main area, or we have a switching channel for, say, the lounge. And if I scroll down here, channel 2, switching program for channel 2, and then we can see the associations. Oh no, that's the locking one. Here we are, switching channel. There we go. So you can see that the switching channel output is linked to that operating mode, which will be linked to the controller, and switching channel 2 controls the where are we here? Controls the lounge, and you can see the type of switching program, HVAC operating. You can have enabled it to change, and one of the things that you can change here is this will send out every either 2 minutes or 60 minutes, whatever you choose, what the program is that's so what the operating mode is for the lounge at that time, which can be quite useful. I just have them selected for only at change, and it will broadcast that. And if we have a look here in the display objects, so this is the page. This is the sort of freely programmable page that I have set up. So we have the page heading is lounge, and then I have a blank line, and then I have the lounge current temperature. So page 2, line 2. And you can see that if we go down here, page 2, line 2. If I look at the association there, that's showing the lounge actual temperature. If I go back to my parameters, and the next one, we've got the set temperature, and if we look at that, this will show us the current set point for the lounge. So it'll show you what the actual temperature is and what the set point is. And then we have the mode, so the heating mode here, and again that's linked to the associations here, which would be the lounge current mode, which is that feedback value that I talked about. And then on line 5 I have a boost mode, on or off, and this can be toggled. And again the switching, I have the channel 63 associated with the lounge heating boost. Okay, so that shows you how the Varia is set up. So effectively all that's happening is as the time of program changes, it's just updating the HVAC operating mode on this channel output here, and then I'm taking a little bit of information from the bus and displaying that here with some options to change 1 or 2 of those parameters. So I'll show you how the actuators work. So I'll just go ahead and open up my actuators project. Now bear in mind that I've split my projects so as to get around the licensing requirements, because you can only have 20 different switches, or different KNX objects, which is not very useful. So I've split mine here, and I have my actuators in a different project. So I'll just zoom in on my actuators here. They're in the garage, and I've got my heating actuators, and now I've got the two ones there. So I'll just click on the heating actuator here and see all the different channels. So there's 6 channels. Now I think that it's channel 5 that the lounge is on. So I'll just show you how this is set up. So we have a bit of basic information here, which is pretty much unchanged, and then I'll go down to channel 5. There we go. So here we actually have the HMG 6. This channel is acting as a heating controller. We've included it in summer mode, so that allows us to switch it off, which is useful, and I'll show you that a little bit later. Yes, we want valve protection, and that's it really. And then we've got settings here. We've got a set point values, so this is 21, reduction by 2 at night, reduction by 5, reduction at 2 for standby, reduction at 5 for night, and then the 5 degrees frost. And again, not cyclic. It's good to put it cyclical if you want to, when you're debugging and so on, but it's probably best to have it only at event of change. And then we've got a couple of other things, and I have the presence button set, so that extends. So at a cool, if it's cool and I want to boost it, I hit the button and it'll turn to comfort for 1 hour, and then it'll switch back again. And that I think is it. The other thing is I've set the valves up like this, so you have to have the valve needs to be open about 30%, at least 30% for it to actually to sort of. The way that KNX does this is over every 10 minutes. So let's say you've got a 50% actuating value. So for every 10 minutes, it would mean that the valve is open 50% of the time, as far as I can figure out. So rather than having an underfloor heating pump just churning on all the time, even though the valve's not open, I want the valve to be open for a reasonable amount of a reasonable period before the underfloor heating kind of kicks on, just to save energy really. So that's the characteristics for when it's acting as the controller. So I'll switch that to PowerPoint. So this is effectively what's happening. You're getting current temperature in, you're getting the current mode in. This is making all the decisions, and then it's turning on the underfloor heating pump and opening the valve a certain amount. So that's one way. You can also connect this to broadcast other information, and as I say, you can kind of connect in a heating boost on the presence channel, which is kind of handy. So the other way to set that up is to have the Varia as a controller, and just the HMG is just an actuator. And this is what I've done with the main area. So in this case, we have the temperature measurements being made by the switches. They feed directly into the Varia, and then you can take in other information, like you can change the set points and the offset sets and so on. So you can feed those in to other channels here. But I'm going to try and keep this simple a little bit. And then the only real output value that connects through to the HMG is just the valve value, and that's some sort of percentage, and that in this case links into channel 36, and this is the group address, so it's broadcast on this group address and it reads here. And then this will, again actuate the underfloor heating pump or the valves, whichever. And you can also sort of output the various modes as well, so the current mode and the feedback and so on, just to display that information elsewhere. So again, I'll show you how I've set that up. I'll just drop back into ETS. So in this case, I know it's channel 4, which is the main area. So you can see in this case I've got the channel function set as just an actuator. It's on continuous. Yes, we want it in summer mode. Yes, valve protection and so on. And then we have a much reduced set of characteristics here. We just have a little bit on the actuating time, which again I've set fairly tight. So I'll close that project and I'll show you how I've set up the Varia, which is slightly different. Downstairs project. So downstairs, ground floor, garage, it's in the garage, there's the Varia, and let's wait for that to come in. So all of the channels which where it's acting as a controller are these first ones here. So the RTC settings is room temperature controller settings, and again you'd want it set up something like this. So yes, we want it. I don't have cooling here, so I just have heating. I've gone for the new ones here, so that's all the operating modes. Plus, I can take in presence, which is something that allows me to do the boost. A little bit on what happens after the reset. It sends the operating mode. I should probably change this from every 2 minutes. In fact, I'll do that just to show you. And then yeah, I've got a presence button, and time for comfort extension is just 1 hour. There you can see the other options. Yes, I want to display this. I don't have a fan. Okay, and then we got a similar option to the controller that you saw in the HMG, where we can set the set point temperatures, and I've just set those as pretty much the same. And a bit of heating. It's continuous control. This is changing the PWM time. It sends a different value at 1% change. That's it, I think, really, and a bit more information there. I should just say that it's really important when you're setting these things up to read the manuals. I think I've got the manuals in my downloaded them from Theban, but they're pretty easy to find. I'll just show you. Yeah, oh, mine looks like. There we go. Yeah, so this is the manual that you would need, and this gives you all of the information on different, which channels to use, and on which ones do what, and what your different options are, and it goes into it in quite a lot of detail. So you will need to be familiar with these, and so I have them for all my for the Varia and HMG and so on. But I have to say, I think the Varia is a nice flexible piece of kit. As I say, you can have all these different display pages, and each one has a different information. So I've got a main one and so on, which shows the set temperature, and I'll take a little bit of footage and just show you how I've set that up, and it allows you to kind of control each room independently. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, so that was just using the Varia as the controller. So all it's doing is it's taking in all the current temperature, it's adjusting the mode internally, and then all it's doing is sending a valve output value to the HMG, which is just actuating that and not actually making any decisions. So you can sort of split that. Final one thing I wanted to show you is the summer mode, and this is basically just an easy way to do all off. So what you do is you basically set up a summer mode switching group address, and then you feed that into each one of the channels in the HMG, and what you can do is when you switch that on, it turns it into summer mode, and it just turns off the heating. So I have a button underneath the Varia that I can just use for turning on and off the heating. When it gets warmer in the spring, or when I'm away, I can just turn it off. You could alternately have another button which just changes everything to the night time and turns off the switching programs, but that would be a little bit more complex to implement. Okay, so I'll finish off with a little bit of footage of the displays that you can see on the Varia, and I hope that's given you some insight into how you would set up heating. It is very challenging. I hope that going through things like this has helped you. Anyway, any questions or feedback, put it into the comments. I'm really happy to read them, and always delighted to see that people find my videos useful. Okay, well, I'll try and do some more videos soon. Take care, bye-bye.